Hi, everyone, and welcome to Heart to Heart. I'm Pastor John Kuert, and we're starting another week of these devotional messages that come from my heart to your heart. And I hope they'll be a blessing to you. Just a little 5 minute inspirational talk. And I pray that in these days when we are in the midst of this storm, that God will bring peace and comfort to your heart. And I'd like to talk to you today about a storm that the Apostle Paul was in. In Acts 27, we have one of the great adventures of the Apostle Paul. As a prisoner of Rome, he was being transported via ship. He warned the sailors that it wasn't a good idea for them to sail in that direction, but they didn't listen to him. After all, he was just a prisoner. And about halfway to their destination, a great storm comes up, and they're all fearing for their lives, except for Paul. And here's what he says: "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed." Last night, Paul says, an angel of God, whose I am and whom I serve, stood beside me and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men," Paul says, "for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me." And sure enough, the shipwrecks, and they're all saved, and Paul becomes the hero. Now, if the book of Acts was a movie, chapter 27 would be the climax. I don't know about you, but my favorite part of any movie is when the hero comes in and saves the day. It makes me wish that Acts had a soundtrack. We have certain music in our heads associated with this kind of a scene, don't we? In the Old West movies, it was the trumpet of the cavalry coming to save the day. In more modern times, it's Star Wars theme or Indiana Jones music. I don't know what it might have sounded like, but it would build into a great climactic overture as the hurricane hits in full force, and the waves crash against the hull, and the crew is screaming, and the captain is shouting orders, and the tension mounts, and all hope is gone. And then the climax music. Here comes the Apostle Paul, our hero. I know sometimes I have a little bit of an overactive imagination, but for me, it helps the Bible come alive. This is not some dry history book. This is human drama at its best. Storms and shipwrecks and lives hanging in the balance. But the main reason I like this chapter, because it's not just about how God dealt with a bunch of guys on a ship 2,000 years ago. This is how God deals with us right now, today. Like these people we read about in this shipwreck, we're in a storm. We're on stormy seas, aren't we? In these days in which we are living, it's getting more and more terrible by the day. But God is going to bring us through it, just like he brought Paul and that whole crew through that storm. God specializes in storms. When the disciples were on the Sea of Galilee, they were fearing for their lives. And they said, "Don't you care that we perish? You're sleeping in the boat?" Jesus said, "Oh, ye of little faith." And he said to the winds and to the waves, "Peace, be still." And immediately the winds and the waves were still. Now, I don't know about you, but I want to hear those words. And if we'll listen closely, We will hear it in our hearts. We'll hear it in our minds. We'll hear it in our spirits, where Jesus is saying, peace, be still. And it's not only this storm is going to pass for sure. There'll be other storms as well in our lives. Maybe you're going through a different kind of a storm even right now. Death or disease or a divorce, or maybe it's a financial storm. Maybe you've lost your job, gotten heavily into debt. Maybe it's a storm of depression or fear. Those can be gale force winds that can really rip our sails down and leave us dead in the water, feeling overwhelmed and underpowered. I don't know what it is, but storms come in life. I know that. I've been through many storms myself. But God has always brought me through. And He will bring all of us through this storm that we face. Just as sure as He brought Paul and those men through that storm and saved them, God is going to bring us through. Now, I don't like not meeting on Sundays. I don't like the way I'm hearing the statistics rising every day where people are losing their lives or people are becoming infected with this coronavirus. It definitely is a storm that we're all facing. And I pray that God will keep each and every one of you and myself and my wife safe from this. But you know what? We're in the storm. We can't get out of it. We just have to ride it through. But you know what? God is with us. He's riding with us. The angel of the Lord is right beside us through all of this. And He's speaking peace to us, just like He spoke to those disciples, just like the angel of the Lord spoke to the Apostle Paul here on this boat. So God will be with us. So on this Monday, as we begin another week of these devotional talks, heart to heart, I pray that you'll look to God, that you will trust in Him, that you will listen for the still small voice in the midst of the storm when Jesus says, peace be still. And I pray that those words will just ring in your heart throughout this week. And I pray for each and every one of you. I'm praying for First Assembly. I'm praying for each family that's associated with the church. I'm glad to be back here. I really am. I'm excited about what God is going to do in the next few months. And I'm looking forward to it. So we'll get through this storm. We'll get through the storm of the country going through. We'll get through the storm that this church is facing. And God will see us through. And we'll be better for it when we come through it. All things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to His purpose. So trust Him. Believe in His word. Stand on His promises. He will bring us through. God bless you today and each day of this week. We'll see you tomorrow. Blessings.